Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Obviously, we are here, and it's an honor for me to be able to announce today our new leader over at the Department of Human Services. But I'm going to back up for just a moment here and acknowledge Acting Commissioner Pam Wheelock. This is what leadership and service looks like. When Commissioner Lourey resigned, and we wanted to make sure we had steady, ethical leadership in that place during the transition, I called and I asked Pam Wheelock to do something very difficult, leave what she was doing and step up and serve the state of Minnesota at a time of need. It took her about 2 seconds to accept that and to start putting things into arrangements to be able to serve the people of Minnesota. So I cannot thank you enough, Acting Commissioner Wheelock. The state cannot thank you enough for bringing that steady, ethical leadership every day. And nobody's done it better at this time. So I applaud your work. So thank you for that. And I also want to use this as an opportunity to applaud the hardworking public servants over at DHS. Critical work continues every single minute of every single day. Those employees over at DHS, their workload and what they're doing did not change because leadership changed. Those passionate workers are busy providing essential services, supporting our children, food assistance, our seniors, and everything else that goes within making Minnesota the best state possible and providing a hand up better than any other state in the union does it. So they are nothing short of heroes, and I want to thank them for their patience during a time of transition. So now it's a pleasure for me to introduce to you the incoming Commissioner of the Department of Human Services, Jodi Harpstead. Jody's currently the Chief Executive Officer of the Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota. She's got 2,300 employees. LSS offers a broad array of community services for people of all ages: housing, crisis shelters, mental health counseling, adoption, financial counseling, senior nutrition, foster care, and services for persons with disability. That is about the exact job description of the Department of Human Services in many cases. The vast majority of the programs are supported by government contracts to DHS, meaning Jody has worked with DHS closely over many years and has a great understanding of this agency. Also, LSS is one of 3 entities, I believe, along with the state of Minnesota, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and LSS, that works in all 87 counties in the state. Jody's work has been a testament to One Minnesota. She knows that that means coming together across lines of differences to improve lives, and nobody gets left behind. Jody embodies service. She knows the delivery of services is critical to a happy, healthy Minnesota for all of us. Jody's diverse background is a blend of private and nonprofit experience. Before joining LSS, Jody worked at Medtronic for over 20 years. She was in a product line over there where she managed over 6,000 employees and had several key leadership positions. She understands the need to be nimble and mindful of cost savings while never losing sight of the mission of delivering services and promoting healthy communities. But above all else, what drew me to Jodi Harpstead was she's clearly a leader. If you distill it down for me, leadership is the ability to provide purpose, direction, and motivation to a group of people to achieve a common goal. And watching people like Jodi Harpstead at a time when we called and asked her, and as she came through this, is stepping in and seeing this as an opportunity to do good. As someone who's done this and has deep respect for leaders, Jody's known for building winning teams. She's also actually written the book on it that'll be coming out here shortly. And in that there's a lot of talk of former staff who talk about Jody's driven, visionary leadership who listens and learns to tackle goal after goal. She talks about breakthrough goals, to challenge people to dream a goal that may not seem possible and then do the work necessary to accomplish it. With her support and encouragement, they did those things. Asked Jody why she believes Lutheran Social Service is so successful in sustaining a rich tradition of support. She says this, and this is one that I've been talking to her about. This is a long-standing core value over at LSS, and I would argue that it is the exact value we wanted and we think we see demonstrated in this administration and over at Department of Human Services. Here's Jody's quote: "We work with compassion and competence. First, we need the compassion to serve the neighbor and to be with them through whatever they are struggling or walking through. Then we need to have the competence to make a difference so that our clients' lives are enhanced by walking with us in a way that makes a difference." I think that's one of the most beautiful quotes on leadership that I've heard, and I think it embodies what the role of DHS in this administration is. Jody's appointment will be effective on September 3rd, where Pam will continue on, and they will kind of, as we call in the military, right seat ride. Pam's mission still continues to do the deep dive, to surface issues, to provide insight and feedback, and to provide us to have the best view of DHS as it aligns with our mission statement to move forward. So I look forward to working together to improve the lives of people across Minnesota, and I know that we have the best leader at DHS to do that. I introduce to you the incoming Commissioner of the Department of Human Services, Jodi Harpstead.
Thank you, Governor Walz. I am inspired by your One Minnesota aspiration, and even more impressed with how you worked with the only divided legislature in the nation to come together to finalize the biennium budget while balancing many competing priorities. So I'm honored to accept appointment to the position of Commissioner of Human Services, to work with you and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan to serve even more of the people of Minnesota than I have been at Lutheran Social Service. I am particularly proud to join the dedicated people of the department, whom I know to be the same caring and competent people that I have worked with at LSS. They now deserve a chance to rebuild their team and get back to their good work of effectively supporting their neighbors. I also want to extend my deep gratitude to Pam Wheelock for stepping into the acting commissioner role this summer. I'm eager to hear what she's learned, what problems she's solved, and what remains to be done. I accepted this position because I could. LSS of Minnesota is stable and healthy and has strong leaders throughout the organization, including the board of directors. I'm free to bring my 39 years of experience in managing people in large organizations to the department. As the governor said, I once co-led the pacemaker and defibrillator product lines at Medtronic with some 6,000 employees. LSS has over 2,300 employees spread all over the state of Minnesota. I'm eager to see how my private sector skills can be useful in the public sector. I have plenty to learn, but I have been leading an organization over the past 8 years that runs services in 23 of the areas contracted by the Department of Human Services. 60% of LSS's work is in greater Minnesota, outside of the Twin Cities. And I've enjoyed traveling the whole state, meeting veterans in Luverne, youth in Duluth, farm families in Carlstad, and people with disabilities in Leroy and Adams. I plan to jump in the day after the state fair closes, pick up where Pam Wheelock left off, rebuild a team in the department, prepare the agenda for next year and the legislative session, and start up the Blue Ribbon Commission with my friend and colleague, Commissioner Jan Malcolm. As the enormous baby boom ages, we will need all the creative ideas we can get for effectively supporting them, as well as other Minnesotans who need support living in community. I remain committed to a few of the priorities I had at LSS, like integrating community services and healthcare to produce fuller lives, better health, and lower cost, in that order, for all Minnesotans. I also remain committed to doing whatever is in my power to move the needle on racial equity in Minnesota. I'm eager to collaborate with the other commissioners, the legislature, counties, private providers, and others as the first commissioner of DHS in memory with an MBA instead of a law or social work degree. I'm grateful for all I learned at one of Minnesota's finest corporations, Medtronic, and at one of Minnesota's finest nonprofits, Lutheran Social Service. I look forward to asking the leaders of the Department of Human Services to imagine their biggest possibilities and then supporting them to achieve them. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Paul Dovery, Chair of the Board of Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota.
Thank you, Jody. Governor Walz, distinguished guests. First, I would like to congratulate you, Governor Walz, on the appointment of Jodi Harpstead as your Commissioner for Human Services. Jody has accepted this position, as she said, because she could. And she could because Lutheran Social Services of Minnesota is a dynamic and successful organization. We have completed 10 years of anti-racism training. We have met breakthrough strategic goals for 10 years in a row. And best of all, we have balanced our budget for 10 years in a row. But true to her Scandinavian roots, Jody would defer to her leadership team rather than take credit for this incredible run. But she has been the leader of this team, a team that has 80 years of cumulative experience, and that's what gives us as board members confidence coming through this transition period just ahead. As you've heard, Lutheran Social Services is one of the largest social service providers in the state of Minnesota, active in every one of 87 counties. And as a Moorhead resident, I'm proud to say that over half of the people we serve are from greater Minnesota. Governor, this is a signal appointment. In Jody, you have a record of achievement in the private sector. She has demonstrated the courage to make tough choices, the imagination to try new things, the compassion to serve all people, and a faith that transcends uncertainty and inspires hope. Because this is a great day for Minnesota, it is also a great day for Lutheran Social Services of Minnesota, for we are partners in changing lives and in building communities. Thank you, and now I am pleased to introduce Pastor Paul Slack.
Good morning. As was said, my name is Pastor Paul Slack. I pastor New Creation Church in North Minneapolis. Many of you know that I have worked as a racial justice leader in Minnesota for over 15 years, and I'm happy to say that I've been a consultant with Lutheran Social Service for the past 2 years. Jodi Harpstead is deeply committed to making our state a better place for all Minnesota residents. From leading the LSS to be an anti-racist organization, from adopting principles at LSS for employees to lead full and abundant lives, to leading her organization to work with marginalized communities to experience greater equity. Jody wants every community to live vibrant lives, and she believes that it's possible. Jody and I met while responding to the death of Philando Castile. My church, along with others, had begun praying for peace and an end to violence when Jody read about our prayer movement and decided to join our effort rather than to do her own thing. Jody believed that through conversations we can build stronger relationships across race and together build better communities and a better world. Key to Jody understanding what to do was deep relationship building with people in community and listening to the ideas about their thoughts, what would strengthen existing efforts. Too often, large dominant organizations come to help having their minds already made up. Jody builds deep relationships and listens as keys to discerning wise action, but be certain Jody does take action. Working with Jody, I've understood that she makes those around her better. She believes in people and helps them channel their energy into better possibilities. Part of that spirit in her, I believe, comes from a clarity of vision. Jody has a unique leadership quality not often found, a passion and desire to build an environment where we can all thrive and the ability to navigate toward the creation of that environment with courage and grace, where people feel affirmed and nurtured. She will indeed be a great Department of Human Services commissioner and a great advocate for a better, more inclusive Minnesota. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. We are extremely excited, as you can tell, to introduce Jody as the newest member of our team, not just because of her extensive background, but because she understands the importance of the work at the Department of Human Services. DHS provides essential services for Minnesotans across the state, from childcare to food assistance to critical healthcare services. And speaking as someone whose family received assistance from public programs like Medicaid, free and reduced price lunch, child care assistance, I cannot emphasize enough the world of difference that these services make in the life of families who are working to get ahead. Our dedicated Department of Human Services continues that vital work each and every day. Jody helped lead Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota, where they offer a broad array of community services for people of all ages across the state. And you know that Jody has seen firsthand how a little extra can help families get ahead. She understands the work that we do at DHS isn't just about efficiency, which is critical and important, but she understands the human component of this work. She understands and embraces serving others through servant leadership where no one gets left behind. The governor's office is drawing from the extensive outreach work that was done by the transition team late last year to collect stakeholder input from key partners on the issues that DHS and the leadership qualities necessary to tackle them in the department. Our transition team held over 300 meetings with DHS stakeholders and legislators to surface issues, qualities, and candidates, and we are respecting that community engagement process and valuing the input by returning to it instead of starting over from scratch. We are also able to draw from potential candidates from a resume pool that surfaced at that time. This allowed us to move quickly and efficiently to find and announce a new leader so that we can further stabilize the operations of a really key agency to the work that we want to do in our administration. We are grateful to Acting Commissioner Wheelock, thank you again, for taking this transitional assignment, and we look forward to working with Jody to build stronger and healthier communities all across the state of Minnesota. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Governor, did you consider this appointment in December?
We did. And what I mean by that is, as the Lieutenant Governor said, we were doing the outreach meetings to establish. I obviously certainly had some criteria that I was looking for, the belief in servant leadership, the belief in those values that we shared, and then putting together and asking for us to go out and build that talent pool. And as the Lieutenant Governor said, we had a wealth of qualified people who put those forward. As we made the decision and chose Commissioner Lourey, some of the things that were in deep consideration at the time were obviously the upcoming budget session, and I have to be very candid, the sunset of the provider tax was a key component. So as we were starting to vet through and match up potential candidates with the commissioner, Jody was part of that, and I think as she would say it became probably, as we started to go down that process, it would probably become we were looking for that legislative experience, and that's where a decision was made. But yes.
Governor, is there any session? Sorry, go ahead. Do you anticipate that the newly named commissioner would participate in the hearing discussions tomorrow in the Senate?
No, she comes, newly incoming Commissioner Harpstead will come on September 3rd. I think she's going to have to find her parking place first over there and things. I think you would be better off to have someone who's done the deep dive, and that's why we're making Commissioner Wheelock available for as much time as needed. And I think right now probably there's no one, and every time we get the chance to debrief, I'm impressed by Acting Commissioner Wheelock deep dive and deep understanding, so she'll be there tomorrow.
Governor, is this kind of a concession that policy expertise, which Commissioner Lourey had in spades, is maybe not as important as organizational knowledge and expertise? No,
I think it's a good question. I wouldn't say that. I think situationally matters. I have to think about this, and ultimately these decisions fall upon myself and the Lieutenant Governor as part of this, as the administrative leadership. We have to take into consideration what's needed, what are we looking for transformationally on this, and that was one that, again, I will not make light of, I think, where I saw as a priority, that provider tax hanging out there with the sunset on it was absolutely would have decimated all of the programs we ask about, and we believed it was a priority. So that did weigh into my decision making. I don't necessarily say that it is an over priority. I think incoming Commissioner Harpstead will say that she will have skill in that, she will understand that. It's not as if she is absent from understanding that policy piece of it, but there was relationship pieces, there were policy pieces, there were political implications that went with trying to make sure that we removed that provider tax. So I don't think it's an either or. I think it is more situational at the time of those things that come. The combination of both of them, and for this administration now 7 months in, I think continuing to try and blend that skill set is important.
Governor, the CEO or the chairman of the board of Lutheran Social Services called this a signal appointment. Do you see it that way? And then I'd like to ask Commissioner Harpstead, what message do you have for Republicans as we go into this Department of Turmoil hearings over the next few days?
I agree with Dr. Dovry that this is one, and I go back to that again. I'm struck deeply by it, and I knew the mission of Lutheran Social Service, but listening to Jody and watching what she's done, this idea of seamlessly blending compassion and competency and management, leadership, and vision and competency, I think there's always this dynamic that happens, and I've heard of this in human services, those that are more technocratic and those that have the compassion for what the mission is. I'd like to believe, and I know we found it in Jody, we found someone who blends both of those that can shape that into the mission. And so I'd allow Jody to then speak.
Thank you. It's interesting when you take a new position, you often come in not knowing much about it. And in this case, over the last several months, there's been all kinds of conversation and publicity about the Department of Human Services. I'm eager to hear the results of the Senate hearing tomorrow. And every time we get a chance to talk about what's going on in the department and what could be done better, we learn something more that's helping me to come into a position pretty well versed in what the issues are and what needs to be done. I have no message today for Senate Republicans, but best wishes on the hearing tomorrow, and eager to hear the result.
Could we ask Commissioner Wheelock for a little preview of what you found in your time there and what you might be telling the Senate now? It's a big agency.
DHS is a big agency. I think the first thing that I would say is that with every change in administration, there's also change in the leadership, and somehow every 4 or 8 years we manage to get through that and don't refer to it as anything chaotic or unplanned or unexpected. Simply put, that's what's happened in this agency. We had a change in leadership, but the wealth of the work, the competency, the compassion, the capabilities of the staff of this agency to move the work forward is just really impressive and tremendous. It's been a fantastic experience to see how deeply this agency reaches into our communities and touches lives across the footprint of the state of Minnesota. Does the agency have issues? Of course it does. It's a $19 billion budget with 6,700 employees. There will always be issues, and our job is to identify those issues, deal with them promptly and capably, and to move forward towards solutions with the best of our skills. I think that's what you're going to hear a little bit tomorrow. There are no big surprises from my end of this. I think it's about having an appropriate discussion with a legislative body that has a responsibility for oversight about the work of the agency, and that's the content of my comments tomorrow.
If I could, one thing that's very interesting of both Acting Commissioner Wheelock and incoming Commissioner Harpstead, both used this line with me when I talk about the agency and doing all that. She said, well, the main focus, and it's even in the name of this agency, is human. So yes, you will have issues and you will have human things. Both of them noted that those are unpredictable things, but that's the work that we do. So I hope, and again, I will echo that we're eager, that as you heard from both of them, eager to find what we can find in a hearing, eager to continue to improve services.
Governor, in December, you named 2 other finalists that you considered for this job. Was anybody else considered this time, and who were they?
We did at this, and we did not list a list of finalists on this one, that we went back through those resumes, as you heard the Lieutenant Governor talk about, taking a look and then reassessing what the needs were, as the question came up earlier, as we saw what was there, the management position and the organizational chart, the ability to build a cohesive mission at DHS, and who possessed that. So I have to tell you, I'm incredibly grateful. I once again made that call, and Minnesotans did, when I called Jody and asked her to serve. Her answer was yes, in a very complicated place. So we went to Jody. We asked her after that process, using that 6 months ago when we were in this position of the work that we did. And I think, as Lieutenant Governor said, I'm very proud, and I want to make note of it. That One Minnesota Transition Board, if you remember, that it was made up of folks all across the state from many different backgrounds, many different political ideologies, and then they created the hiring teams that then went out and did the searches. We relied on that again, and of course Jody was one of those.
Governor, there's been some talk about dividing this agency from members of both parties, as I've heard it. Is that something you'll have her looking into the study?
Well, this is where I'll let incoming commissioner act about. We certainly think that everything should be looked at, but I think it's premature to just make that case. Jody mentioned that when she was at Medtronic, she was in an agency that big and that functioned accordingly. So I think each one is an individual decision to make, and I think it's at this point in time, we are empowering a leader around us to help us with that. And this is where, again, I hope comes out tomorrow, this is where the legislature can help us. And I would hope with our Blue Ribbon Commission that the folks involved with that the part of that mission is going to be to take that deep dive and take a look. So I think it's premature to say exactly what that looks like, but I can assure you that those are discussions that are going to happen.
Governor, we hear a lot about the alphabet agencies here and budgets and things, but for the average person applying for benefits through DHS, has anything changed through all this, as Bill mentioned, era of turmoil? Are people still going down to their county offices and applying and getting benefits in the same orderly fashion?
I would just say this before it starts with those employees and the work that they're doing. I think many of us who work in these organizations, think about your own organization now, whether it's a news organization or wherever you're here. When they change folks at the top or in corporate structure, we've probably got a lot of folks in DHS that don't know who Pam Wheelock is. Not because she's not doing good work, it's because they're doing their job. And so
I think that's a fair point. I think that this is really career professionals who have a passion for doing the best work, that they come into the office every day trying to serve a community. And I'm not discounting the importance of having the right leadership in an agency, but their jobs are very clearly defined, their programs are clearly defined, they are there to do the work prescribed to them in their job descriptions, and that's what they've been doing. And yes, this has been an uninterrupted process for Minnesotans who need to access the services of this department, and in some cases the process of the department has even improved. We are now within the 30-day time frame for the enrollment of new personal care attendants, so we've actually improved our backlog and made some progress. So I think the use of the terminology of chaos and turmoil is misplaced, and it's time for all of us to move on.
Commissioner, I'd like to follow up with you because there's certainly going to be questions in that hearing tomorrow about the investigation relating to Inspector General Ham and why Ms. Ham was transferred to another area in DHS. Republicans are certain to bring that up. What are you going to tell them?
Well, I will simply restate what we've already shared with them, which is that an issue was brought to our attention. We're doing the proper investigation. This is a classified employee. There are rules and processes that need to be followed. And in the interim, she has skills and qualifications where she was able to be reassigned to another area to provide service to the state of Minnesota instead of simply having the option of being paid by the state while on leave and sitting in her living room. So it seemed like the prudent thing to do.
And what will you tell them about the delay in the investigation of allegedly several months, which this allegedly sat in limbo?
Well, I don't want to use today to kind of take too much steam out of the hearing tomorrow. I'd love to see you all there tomorrow as well. But I think understanding the process that a state agency that's hiring an investigator, an investigation team to do an investigation of a unit that does investigations is unique, and that means that there are some issues about process that need to be addressed.
One more question. We'll have some time afterwards for off-topic with the governor. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you all being here.
Thank you.